Why are designers so obsessed with getting a seat at the table? What if the table isn't even worth sitting at in the first place? Today, we're going to challenge the idea that career success means climbing a corporate ladder. And instead, we're going to talk about how to protect your mental health, how to grow through community, and how to design your own goddamn table. So stick around because the conversation might just change how you define success as a designer. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome. I am super stoked to have you. How often do you stare at a blank Figma canvas unsure where to start? This episode is brought to you by Mobbin, the ultimate UI and UX design inspiration library. Mobbin gives you instant access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI and user flows from apps you love, and content is added weekly, so you never have to start from scratch again. Quickly find exactly what you need, search by app category, UI patterns, or even specific features. And my team and I use Mobbin daily at work to find useful patterns, and it helps my team work much more efficiently. And honestly, I couldn't imagine kicking off a new feature without Mobbin. So are you ready to level up your design process? Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and never run out of inspiration again. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Roddy, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, and Zoe for all their support. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told your mom and them. So a seat at the table. What is a seat at the table? What does it get you? It's different for everybody. It's different for me. And it's probably different from my guest today, Rashmi Lopez. But today we're going to talk about why that seat at the table might not even be worth getting. And if you can't get a seat at the table, find your own community and design your own goddamn table. Rashmi Lopez is a first-generation child of South Asian immigrants, a creative spirit raised in a culture that values tradition. For 15 years, she tried to fit into the world of tech, rising to become a design leader at a startup, but the experience left her feeling drained and out of place. And in 2023, a layoff became a turning point. Rashmi walked away from corporate culture and refocused her energy on helping small businesses thrive. And today she uses branding and visual design to give founders a fighting edge against large corporations and to help them tell their stories with clarity and heart. Rashmi, welcome to Beyond UX Design. I am so excited to have you on. How is it going?
Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy. This is so cool. And I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Awesome. Really excited.
Hell yeah. And so when we first talked, this was going to be your first podcast. But since then, you're such in high demand. Everybody wanted to have you on. You've been on a bunch of shows. You're a freaking expert now. You're a podcast guest pro.
And you know?
I would have loved to have been your first, but here we are. Welcome to Beyond UX. Like I said, I'm so excited to have you on. Something that I have seen very often as a designer is that we often are just left out. We're left out of conversations. We're left out of strategic decisions. And we are just clamoring. We're clamoring. We're falling over each other, trying to get that quote unquote seat at the table. But sometimes that seat, it ain't as comfortable as it looks. And sometimes you don't want it. I know I read your bio a little bit, but tell us a little bit about you and how did you come to this idea, this decision in your head that table wasn't worth it?
Oh my gosh. It's been a long journey of deciding that it's not like a snap decision, I think. It was the experience I gained from every role I've had. It's been watching my fellow brethren designers and my coworkers, my friends. And it's also been an interesting journey of just reflection, self-reflection on, hey, how did I get here? I found myself in a pretty high-level role at my last full-time role, which was at a company called CareRev, great startup. But unfortunately, just as things go, I think with so much learning that you go through in an organization that's so nascent, you start to feel it a lot. So I saw a lot of just things happening to me, to my body, to my life, to my relationships that I didn't want to see happen. And it was very much a point of, hey, what is it that's causing this? So therapy, conversations with other people, and just a lot of self-reflection. So it's been a long journey. And it's, as you said, it's been over 15 years, going on 20 pretty soon here. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
As we talk about like rethinking a seat at the table, I'm curious what that means for you, because I'm sure if you ask every designer, you're going to hear a ton of different answers as to what that seat at the table actually means. Some people think of it as more responsibility or more decision making or more power sometimes even, or more influence. But I'm curious, like from your perspective, like when you think about a table with a bunch of seats around it and a bunch of important people sitting at that table, like what does that mean to you before we get started? And then I want to talk a little bit about redefining and rethinking that table.
Sure. What a seat at the table means to me is like the vision, I think. The ideal is to have a voice from every partner that you're working with, be it product, be it finance, be it marketing, whoever it is that has a stake, as a stakeholder.
One who holds a stake.
One who holds the stake, medium rare, who cares about the end goal, right? Because that's, as designers, that's who we are. I think we care very deeply about what the end result is. So ideally, it looks like just partnership. It looks like give and take. It looks like I'm listening to you, you're listening to me, we're respecting one another. And we're trying to work towards a common goal. I think that's really what we're craving as when we're talking about the seat at the table, at least for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. As we were thinking about this, like something that kind of popped in my head is this idea of craft, right? And something that we talk a lot about as designers, in the zeitgeist at least, is this idea of craft. And then when you think about craft, you think about craftsmen, craftspeople, people who have a craft and they do that. And when you think about that, I think about leather workers or like plumbers, carpenters, people that you hire them to do a specific thing and you don't tell them how to do it, right? They come in and they do the thing you paid them to do. And you said something that made me think about this, which is we care a lot, right? We have empathy. Obviously, that's a buzzword, but it is true. I think we care. And we are often not able to, in contrast to traditional craftspeople, we are not able to do the things that we think we should do. We are often told to do things that we know are wrong, or we think are wrong, or we think are incorrect, or low quality, whatever, rush things or skip steps, things like that. And it's funny, a plumber doesn't need a seat at the table because they're like, you have this problem. Here's how much it'll cost to fix. A leather worker, somebody will like make something and they will sell it and they will say, this is what I designed. I made this thing. It's beautiful. Buy it or don't. And it's just funny. We call ourselves craftspeople, but we're over here trying to do this craft, but nobody lets us do it. And so we're like, give me the seat at the table. I want the seat at the table so I can make decisions. Anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but it just popped into my head as you were saying that made me think of that.
Absolutely. It's a very unique position we're in that we have a thing that we're hired to do. Like this, I was thinking about this morning because you also hear, like, in addition to seat at the table, you also hear this argument for, hey, designers need to communicate our own value, right? Mm-hmm. And first of all, I think that's a crock of shit because I hired me in the first place.
I love that. We're going back to like craftspeople, right?
Yes.
A plumber doesn't come in and say, let me explain the value of plumbing. Let me explain like why having clean pipes and pipes that connect and don't leak is really important. And let me explain. It's so funny because, again, as this idea, craftspeople, we're the only quote unquote craftspeople I can think of that have to continuously try to prove that the craft is even worth buying in the first place. And it blows my mind.
This is exactly the connection. There are certain professions that, I don't know, the perception is, of course, a plumber, that's the value. I get it. There's the apparent value, but there's also the hidden value. The bigger part of the iceberg, as the drawing is, the visualization that we've seen in a meme a million times. Mm-hmm. There's the unseen that feels so like, well, if you just listened to me, then you would hear everything else but there's also there's the gap there that somehow in the industry, we're having a hard time finding connection with non-designers in that regard. So I don't know where I was going with that.
That's okay.
But what was the question?
I don't even remember.
Okay.
I don't even remember.
It's the communicating value, the need to really like connect too. I think this is another reason designers, we do pretty well by ourselves, but we're also better as a group. We have that, we take the care that we have and then we just amplify it with each other, like through critique, through conversation, through exploration, through research, right? So there's just a lot of care that goes into it that's unseen, by people who are the stakeholders who aren't like in the nitty gritty. So it's difficult.
Now, in our pre-interview prep talk, you mentioned something. You talked about like Da Vinci and all these like classic designers and artists and everybody else who just built things. And when I think about our current career, you just mentioned this too, we have to sell the value, right? Like people don't understand the value. We have to convince them that what we're doing, what we're designing is actually while over any other number of people who could have an idea, stakeholders, PMs, whatever. And I don't want to diminish their ideas because those people often do have incredible, wonderful ideas, but they are certainly not designers. And I think I'm preaching to the choir, obviously, but we bring a certain thing to the table. But people like Da Vinci, even like artists and stuff, like they create for the intrinsic value of the thing that they are creating. And so it has value in and of itself. Unfortunately, the way like our jobs tend to, we always talk about, we're not artists, we're designers, we're designing for like business impact and things like that. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts there around this sort of disconnect between design historically and design today. I don't even know where I'm going with this question necessarily, but I'm curious what you think. And maybe you could expand a little bit on that analogy that you used, because I thought that was really interesting. This idea of people who created to create and then us who are fighting to get our voices heard.
Yes, absolutely. I think that metaphor was really about permission, because I guess I'll call it corporate design, but I don't know if there's a better term for it. But in this time we're living in right now, the dominant experience is I'm a designer. I work as a team in a corporate environment, 9 to 5. And I'm given requirements. We may have grooming sessions with our team and whatever to figure out how to meet a goal, right? Historically, the artists, the engineers, like Da Vinci was both. He was both an artist and an engineer. And he didn't necessarily need somebody to tell him or give him a goal about something. He dreamed a lot. He said, what if this happened? And he would go ahead and give himself permission to just explore and play and work through whatever he's working through. And sometimes the solution was art. And sometimes the solution was the goal, like the Renaissance man, right? Like just things that help other people, that move things forward. And works like that, those things are the things that are in museums now. That we go, like I'll go to the Getty and I'll just take in all of these impactful projects. And an interesting thought occurred to me, like while I was thinking about this. I don't think the CareRev app is going to find its way into a museum.
Yeah. Likewise, yeah. Anything I've ever done in my entire career.
What is your OKR? You're like, say you did meet all of your OKRs in any given quarter. Is that going to be shown in a museum? No, like, because that's what you're being told to do it. And it's very important to the goals at the time, the collective goal in the organization you're having. This makes you money, but does it serve you? Does it feed you? Does it feed your soul? Is it soul work? I don't know. Like sometimes for some people it is. And so that's the question that we all need to approach individually.
I think that's so true. And as we were talking through this, something I keep going back to is this idea that for us, a lot of times designers, success means not necessarily a seat at the table of success, but a seat at the table generally implies upward progression in your career. And so you're a lead and you're a manager, whatever, and suddenly you get a seat at the table. And so that's success. What I love about what you're talking about here is what does actual success look like? And I think it's interesting because what I would say is success for me is probably very different for you, is probably very different for everybody. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because why do we fixate so much on that seat at the table as a metric of success versus 1,000 other things you were talking about, like my body and like exercise and like being able to eat healthy and not being overworked and sleep, working all night. Like all those things are unhealthy, but somehow it's successful. It's kind of interesting. It's like this oxymoron paradox, perhaps. And I'm curious, when we think about success, we often tie to the seat at the table, but what does success actually look like?
Yes. This is such an interesting thing to think through because on one hand, it's so individualized, right? Like my vision of success is most likely different from your vision of success. So I'll tell you what, I guess the journey that I went through to even define success for myself, because I feel like it used to be one thing and there was a shift and then now it's something different. So before, and it was exactly as you say, like the seat at the table, I think in a way, because designers care so much. We also tend to be people pleasers quite a bit. And a seat at the table often, like, I guess, does communicate respect. And this is what we crave. We crave a sense of respect. We crave mattering. We want to matter very much. At least in me, like with my life and with stuff that I've worked through in therapy all the time. Growing up, success also equated to money. It equated to being a very like outwardly successful, like the title, the cars, the appearances, right? And that's something that I chased a lot. As recently as going into I was so excited to become a design leader on a couple of things. Yes, I wanted to support a team. I wanted to pay things forward. I wanted to be a mentor to other designers. But there was also this sense of, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this great title and my family's going to love me. My mom's actually going to tell me I'm proud. And the South Asians on this call will know that is a prize. That's not something that we get very often. But, and this is something I did, I guess, towards the end of my time there, even before I was laid off. I was starting to see things break down, as I mentioned earlier. And I did something like, usually you seek mentorship. You're like, okay, who's farther along than I am? Like, can they give me advice on what to do? A shift happened where instead I projected further into if I keep going as I'm going now, like just most at the speed of just in a vacuum, where is that going to lead? Who am I going to be? Is that what I want? Because in reality, all we have is right now. We don't like any type of future, like senior designer, leader, CEO, whatever the goal is. That's not promised. Time is not promised, right? So all we have is right now. So if I continue, is this good? Like, is it going to meet the goals that I need? And the answer was no. Shifted, and success turned from the title, the appearances, the money, to healthy, good relationship, like being present at all times, being able to enjoy myself, experiencing joy again. I was having, like, this is what something burnout does to you. It takes away your joy because you're always living in the future, always like trying to foresee the next goal, the next OKR, whatever's going to happen in the future. And it takes a toll on you. Don't get me wrong, goals are very important things, but you also must experience your own self in your own body and know yourself to know where is who I am right now going to take me to where I want to be.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I was thinking about as you were talking, did you ever watch Mad Men?
Oh my gosh, everybody tells me to, and I need to, but I haven't.
It's all about this idea of almost exactly what you're talking about, right? Like chasing the clients, moving up the ladder, working all night, working weekends. Right. And the show's about this guy, Don Draper, who actually came from like nothing. Well, you don't know that until the end. Spoilers, by the way, for anybody listening, earmuffs if you haven't watched it. Do you want me to spoil it for you, by the way? I'm like telling you about the show.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I won't.
So anyway, you find out like halfway through the series that he's actually not con man's the wrong word, but he like assumed another identity of a quote unquote successful person. And he was like poor. They were in the military together. The guy died in battle. He took over and became him. And anyway, the guy didn't have like family or anything, so he just assumed his life, a quote unquote successful person. And then he got a job in advertising, burned the midnight oil, drank too much, smoked too much, family got divorced, his kids hated him and all that stuff. But he was, from the outside, quote unquote, successful advertising executive in New York City. And this sort of progression over time, and then close of the series is like him on a mountain, like doing meditation, and he like leaves the corporate world behind. And so this is like sort of Don Draper finding what success really looks like. And I just couldn't help in my head but make that connection. And spoiler, sorry if you hadn't seen the show, it's been a decade. I think the spoiler thing has passed. But anyway, that kind of reminded me of that. This sort of success from the outside might look very different from the inside, which leads me to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is the role of mental health in all of this. And you mentioned in the beginning of the show having a therapist, someone to talk to, even if it's not a quote-unquote therapist, but like somebody to just chat with, even if it's just friends or peers or whatever. But I'd love to learn about that. How did you come to prioritize mental health like over the money or the title or any of those other things? Because I think that's often like what we struggle with more than anything else. At least I do. So I'm curious like what your journey was like.
It's honestly the hardest journey because as designers, we prioritize empathy. And so sometimes the person we're trying to empathize with becomes more important than us and we just lose it. We become the researcher and we're like, okay, I'm not here. Just do it. Do your thing. And so it's easy to not pay attention. I think what shifted, and it was very like little tiny shifts over time, I would say. The first thing that happened was I made a conscious decision that as a design leader, and this was before I hired a single person, is said, I'm going to be like the best leaders that I've been under. I'm going to prioritize mental health, everything. And this was my, I'm just a fucking rebel sometimes. Like I'm like one of those people, even when I was doing 9 to 5s, I would just be like, I don't care if these people fire me. I'm just going to do whatever I want. I was like, I don't care what the policy is. I don't care what the company policy is going to be, if it changes or not, but I'm going to be the one to tell you that if you need a mental health break, you take it. No questions asked. And then of course there was other protocols behind that, of course, because you just have to, but I wasn't modeling it. I wasn't doing it myself. At one point I noticed that people don't follow your words, they follow your actions. What is Rashmi doing? Like, Rashmi's the leader. I'm going to follow her lead. So before the layoff, I was starting to experience burnout already. And I said, I really need to be modeling this to people because if I'm experiencing this, they are too, and probably more. And that's what made me change. I had never had a therapist before, and I went on BetterHelp, which I've been told at the time I told that it was the best place to find one because you could switch if you needed to, and eventually found a good one. I think that's just the action of like, you just show up. You don't even have to be good at it. You're never going to be good at mental health. No. I'm just going to say this, just disclaimer, I'm still working on it. I'm wearing my Overthinker t-shirt right now, by the way, just to remind myself, it's not about perfection. It's just about showing up. It's just about, I don't feel like it. I don't think I'm worth it in this moment, but I'm just going to show up and then let the journey take me. So that was the shift for me, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I love that. Now, it's interesting because you mentioned tiny shifts over time.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing I think about like corporate life, I was going to say corporate America, but a lot of people listening, not in America. So corporate life, wherever you are, is it's tiny shifts towards the negative as well, right? It's like you don't start off working 80 hours a week, right? You like answer an email here. You respond to a Slack message there. You say, oh, I got to finish this thing. You work a couple hours here and then a couple hours there. Suddenly you're working all night. You're working every weekend. And the thing there is you're setting a precedent. And so then you get to a point where a lot of teams, sometimes, some teams, some cultures, you get to the point where that is the norm and everybody does it. And so when you're suddenly working 40 hours, a full-time job, that's not enough time. That's not enough time anymore. And you're like, well, how the fuck did I get here? What happened? It wasn't like this 6 months ago. It wasn't like this a year ago. Like one leader comes in and just changes the culture of the team, not overnight. Slowly, little by little over time. And then suddenly 6 months later, you're like, this is not the job I had 6 months ago. It's totally different. And so it's really interesting. You mentioned like tiny shifts. It's like tiny shifts towards the good, but it's also like tiny shifts towards the bad. And then you get to the point, like I've seen this at certain places, like gaslighting you. Yeah. You're not working hard enough. You're not working fast enough. You're like, wait, I worked 40 hours this week. That's not enough? Well, Jim's working 45 hours a week. Or Jim's working overnight. Jim answers my phone call when I call at night. Like, why don't you? And so then you're like, well, shit, I'm a bad employee. When you're getting like gaslit, those things don't happen immediately. It's a slow drip towards that. And it's tying this back to the seat at the table. That's how we think we get the seat at the table a lot of times, right? We think if I work harder, if I work later, if I answer emails in the middle of the night, if I answer phone calls in the middle of the night because my CEO is a workaholic, I think that's how I'll get to the point where I can influence him and I'll get that seat at the table just like he has. And it's so dangerous because it doesn't, just like you said, it happens over time. I love that you call out therapy and talking to somebody because as I think about this, when you're getting gaslit, like by nature, right, it's you thinking you're wrong. because the other person told you were wrong. And often it takes a third party, somebody else. You mean, what the fuck are you talking about? Dude, that's crazy. 80 hours a week is not normal. Like answering emails in the middle is not normal. Like those kinds of things to snap out of it. And so it could even be, and then I don't know how easy this might be because I think it depends on the team, but stop answering that third email in the middle of the night. And then a month later, you're not answering the second email. And then a month later, you're not answering that first email. And you're starting to flip the script. Thinking about seat at the table too, this is really interesting. I don't want to give the impression that a seat at the table at work is not valuable, but I think thinking about those toxic environments, I want to get your thoughts on this. It isn't that you don't need a seat at the table or you say, fuck the table. It's that this is the wrong table for me.
Yes.
I'm going to go find a job somewhere that is a seat at the table that I want, that values me. And so anyway, tying that back, curious if you just have any extra thoughts there. I know I've been talking a lot. The whole point is to ask you questions, not for me.
No, but I love this.
But anyway, I just curious if you have any other thoughts there.
Jumping off of it, sometimes it's a different table, right? Because, so first of all, let's talk about the reality of the table. Like, is table the one you really want to be at? Do you know what the nature of the table really is? And why, if it is so good, then sure, maybe what you're doing is worth it. But you need to know whether or not it's worth it before you start to destroy yourself to get there, right? The second thing you said is, okay, maybe I need a different table. Maybe it's a different job. Really it's something else. Or maybe it's create my own table. Maybe I can't find the table that I'm really want to have, like the people I really want to have lunch or dinner with or coffee, the people I really want to support who support me too, that ideal give and take that we were talking about earlier. If that's not happening, then I guess I got to create it myself. And for me, the answer was community, because I noticed something and wrote like a thread about it. And, so I probably said it better there than I'm going to say it here, but
we'll link to it in the show notes.
One thing I noticed there's a difference between like corporate culture and community that I just observed. And it's to do with support. Corporate culture, support is only given if there's conformity, right? It's conditional based on how well you conform, how well you perform, and are you meeting the standard? Now, it's a job, right? And that's the nature. That's why we get so pissed off when people are like, "You're family here." They're like,
yeah. We're definitely not family.
Yeah. And community, and this is any community, like it could be family for you, it could be like chosen family, it could be your neighbors, whatever. Support is given to its weakest people. So the people who haven't, you don't need to perform for it. You don't need to be the best. You don't need to deserve it or earn it. Support is just given. So for me, that's where I was like, that's the table that I want. That's the table that I want to be at. So I found myself in a position where I'm finding ways to get there, but that's where I thrived. And it's just a mindset shift, right? If you do need to stay in a corporate job, then it doesn't mean you need to adhere to whatever the culture is. It's whether, let me see what my goals are. Like, talk to your older self and say, is that the person I want to be? What would they say to me? Not like another mentor, not anybody else. I want the listeners on this call to think about who you're going to be in the future if you continue this way, and then shift to the person that you want to be, and then follow that path instead. And find the table that works for you, for that person.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had this thought. When you're talking just now about finding your own table, something that's really interesting is I think a lot of times we assume that we will, and we talked a little bit about like reward and this feeling of accomplishment, that I'll only get that working for someone else. And I don't want to imply that everybody should go off and start their own business. I have tried it multiple times, failed multiple times. I've never made like a multi-million-dollar business. I've barely made I've never had a six-figure business. I haven't even hit that point yet. So I don't know what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to owning a business. But I think a lot of tie our jobs to that sense of self-worth. And the way that I see this, and this is my thought, is a job is just job. It's there. It's transactional. I do some work. You pay me. I pay my bills. It is not what defines me. and maybe getting laid off a couple times has helped me to realize this, but that title, that senior thing, senior staff, principal, lead, whatever it is not defining you. It is just how you make money to pay your bills. And you could do any number of things to get paid to pay your bills. Some jobs obviously will pay more than others, but you don't have to tie that sense of self-worth, the seat at the table, the title. How do you build influence? And I love your idea of community and finding your own community and building your own table and designing your own table. And I feel like so many people just assume like the only place to find purpose is at work through this title, but it's not, right? It's not. So the thing I keep going back to, and this is where I've landed, is you have a job, it pays your bills. That doesn't mean you can't do any number of things outside. And obviously balance, work-life balance, don't like burn yourself out trying to start your own side hustle or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's like a balance there. Like, what side hustle do you enjoy? You could do 15, 20 hours a week or do nights and weekends. It doesn't feel like work. That doesn't burn you out. It'll make you 10, 15,000, but also maybe even more importantly, impact the community somehow or have an impact on some population of people that you care deeply about. I feel like people often think it's, I got to do 40 hours a week, full-time job, or this, I have to start my own business. I can't do both, but I think there's opportunity to dip your feet in both. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I feel like there's more than two options. You know what I mean? And it's interesting. I just got a DM from someone, another person on LinkedIn that I met and haven't met yet, but I just talked to her. Yeah, it's great. I posted something, I think it was yesterday, about corporate culture because, you know, fuck the man. And she was like, I'm so proud of you for finding a path away from corporate culture. What I found interesting about that is that there's also like this mentality that it's one or the other. And yes, stepping away from the 9 to 5 has helped me heal, but I don't think that's the only way. What I would love to see is like where you can start is what are the types of projects that give me energy? What can I create without needing to be productive? Our culture focuses so heavily on production and having an end user. What are they going to think? What are they going to see? How are they going to feel about it? And I would love to see more creatives, whether you're UX or whatever, whether you think you're an artist or not, just create something that nobody is going to see. Like just create for the sake of creating something that gives you energy. Creation is always an energy producing action, right? And okay, you have a 9 to 5 job. Maybe you hate it. I don't know. Maybe you love it. You also always have to do something for yourself. Always. And this is a teacher when I was in art school told me this exact thing. I was doing my portfolio and he was reviewing it. And why did you do this way? And I said, well, I think that, you know, it would be more palatable to a client if I did this. And he said, I get it, but you have to create something for yourself. You're never going to get to the end of this alive without creating for yourself. You are a creative and we're all creative. That's what I believe. But I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, again, I forgot what the question was, but I love the answer regardless. But yeah, I love that. And it's interesting because it goes back to this idea that as designers, we are not artists. We are not paid to create art. We are created to create. We are paid to create business value and hopefully customer value that will then pay and become business value. We are not paid to do those things that we like, but there's nothing stopping us from that side thing, that passion project on the side. There's nothing stopping us from trying to inject some of that into our work and adding some quote unquote delight or something. And I'm not saying you have to do that for every single corporate bank app or something that you're designing, but I think there is something to that in finding meaning and purpose outside of work. And I've also found that finding that meaning and purpose outside of work often makes that corporate drudgery more bearable. Yes. When you have something to look forward to after hours or on the weekends or something else. And again, I think so many people tie that my job sucks, I hate my job, therefore I hate my life, to I hate this job, but I'm getting paid for it. I get paid every 2 weeks. Hooray. Oh, what do you need me to do? I don't care. I'll push the pixels around all day long. You're paying me. I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever the hell you want. That's great, as long as you keep paying me. But yeah, it's just really interesting, this whole idea, though, of finding something on the side, even if it doesn't make you any money, even if it's just like drawing and sketching in a notebook, even if it's like coloring or building Legos. Like, Obviously, you got to have a job to pay for the Legos because the Legos ain't cheap. But if you love Legos, like that's your thing. I don't know. Look at your job as like outside funding to buy more Legos if you hate your job. You know what I mean? So anyway, I don't know. I just love that. And that idea of just building community. I think that's so important. I would love to know, as we wrap up the conversation, when you think about building community, what are some things that people can think about? Because I think most people, they assume I'm a designer. I want to find a community. I'm going to find IXDA. I'm going to find Friends of Figma. I'm going to find some UX meetup or something like that. But I assume like you're way beyond that. People listening, what advice do you have for them to go out and find that community?
You know, I'm going to say something and it feels so stupid. It feels like it's just so simple that it's stupid. People are going to be like, shut the hell up. And maybe you will, but it comes down to just making friends. And here's the thinking behind this, okay? I used to think that quote unquote networking, how we think about networking as a professional, right? It's let me go to a group environment, whether it's virtual or in person, and let me try to get people to like me enough to like give something to me, like in terms of a job or an opportunity or a connection or whatever it is. And then you never see that person again. And you're like trying to like, I do this. And then you're flashy and show you and give you the jazz hands. And what was missing for me in that is the part where there's no follow-up. There's no like real connection there. What I'm saying is, yes, I would say start with what you know in IXDA or the professional organizations, the Slack channels, whatever. But don't just talk about design. Talk about people's lives. Talk about like care is coming up a lot in this conversation. And it comes down to caring enough about somebody else and understanding their lives to, in turn, start to care about you and what you're up to. The seat at the table that we're talking about, that's mutual respect. That's what is happening with you? How can I help? That, of course, turns into the other way around. So it just becomes a very, I don't know, this pure, like, lovely thing where you're just, I don't call some of my clients, I call them my friends. I call them people that they have a dream that they really wanted to make real, and I have the ability to do that for them. So I do. And it's so much more fulfilling than the perfectionism and the corporate laddering and all of that. And that is real community at the end of the day. It's just, how can I support you?
Yeah, it's something you think, I don't know, do you have kids? I don't know if you have kids.
I don't. I have a fur baby. But
you have a fur baby. Okay, so I'm 43. My wife's 43. Yes. We have kids. We have 2 kids. The older we get, the harder it becomes to find friends. Yes. And we actually moved all the way across the country. No family. We didn't know anybody here. Some people from work and stuff, but we had no friends. And it was like so freaking hard, like finding friends. We end up, it's like, I don't know if you ever plan on having kids, but at some point, well, you fur baby, dog or cat?
Dog.
I'm willing to bet you could go to the dog park and find other people who have like dogs. But like for us, it ends up being like our kids and their parents. Like we're friends with our kids'
yeah,
parents.
Your kids' friends, yeah.
Our kids can hang out and then we'll hang out. And every once in a while, there's like a weirdo. I'm like, that kid was freaking weird. That parent was like super weird. I don't want to hang out with them anymore. But that's something like, and again, like thinking outside work, I hate talking about work. I never talk about work.
Yeah.
Like I never ask people, what do you do? If they ask me, I'm like, oh, what do you do? I guess you care about that. But nobody knows what a UX designer is anyway, so it's so pointless to even talk about it. But anyway, I love that. Finding friends, making friends. There's so many places. Like when we went to Cincinnati, there's outdoor groups that go hiking together or all that stuff. I love finding things like that. Like I'm actually the Cub Scout den leader for my kid's Cub Scout den. And so it's like, ends up being a lot of dads, mostly because dads are in the Cub Scouts, but other dads who like hiking and camping, going outdoors and all that stuff. I'm like, their kids like it too. So my kids get to hang out. And anyway, I don't know. I just love that. I think that's so much more fulfilling. And I love volunteering 15, 20 hours a week there. Even if it doesn't make me any money, it feels rewarding. And I get to hang out with my kids. I get to hang out with other people. Unfortunately, with Scouts, there's no beer, which is tough. But anyway, I know. I just love that. I don't have any other thoughts. But finding community doesn't have to be around design. I love that you call that out. And I think just like finding purpose.
Yes.
I feel like, again, finding purpose outside of work makes a miserable, mundane corporate job that much. Because it's funny, people in corporate America, I'm sure like accountants and stuff complain about their job. I don't know of another profession that complains about their job as much as designers do, Like,
Sure
maybe
there
it happens.
are, but
maybe there are. But like accountants love math. They love accountants. Nobody's going to be complaining about their job. It's just, it is what it is. You hired me to crunch numbers. I'm crunching numbers. And I don't know. It's funny. I don't know a lot of people, obviously. But like, I feel like designers just complain so much about their jobs. And no, I guess maybe, I don't know. I'm
we're
sure there's
rebels
other
at
people. I'm saying
heart.
that. Yeah.
We just like, you know,
we feel trapped.
exactly.
I don't know.
We just need our wings to be free.
I love that. All right. So, Rashmi, we have had you for a little while now. Before we get out of here, I want to ask you some questions to help our listeners get to know you a little bit better. But before we do that, any other closing thoughts? Anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about as it relates to that stupid seat at the table that we all want? Anything we hadn't talked about that you think is worth digging into?
Anything we hadn't talked about? I think we already
There's a lot.
touched. Yeah, there was a lot. So we did touch upon, is that seat at the table worth it? And as someone who has actually been at a table, I don't know how, I'm sure there are many people who are listening as well, and yourself included, but as soon as I became a leader, I was like, yes, people are going to listen to me now, right? And I got to that table. I was invited to the offsites, the leadership offsites, the leadership calls, all of those things. And let me tell you something about those people. They poop too.
Yeah, they all do.
Nothing special about them. They are not, and this is why I said, I think it's really worth checking out that table and seeing if it's worth your time, because, I encountered people who were toxic, whether or not they meant to, that's a different issue entirely. Like people who are out for themselves, like who wanted that exchange or who had the care of the end product. They just needed to hit a revenue goal. And oftentimes it does come down to revenue goals and not about the experience, which is something designers are always frustrated about. And imagine getting there and finding out that nobody actually cares about that. Just vet your seat at the table, please. If that is something you want to do, ask the right questions and understand yourself enough to know the types of people I want to be collaborating with. So I guess that goes for any job, any situation.
Yeah, those people, they poop too, but the difference is they get the 2-ply toilet paper and you get the 1-ply. They
don't get the nice Charmin.
Yeah, they get the fancy 2-ply, you get the industrial 1-ply. Speaking of toilets, this is a funny anecdote. I used to work with a bunch of people from Europe, and they hated coming to our office in the United States because the toilets are like, you guys are so archaic. Your toilets, anybody could just stick their head under these stalls. Like, why don't the stalls go to the ground? I don't understand. And then when you go to the European office, it's a room with a door. Yes. Like, it actually closes. I'm like, wow, you guys, fancy fucking Europeans with your 8 weeks paid vacation and your 2 months off of work during Christmas time.
Oh my God, private shitting? What's that like?
Oh my God. Go to Europe, find out, move to Europe. Just got to move to Europe, unfortunately.
Thinking about it.
The other thing, as we were closing this out, like one thing, just like advice I would have given myself, you asked, what would you want future self to be? I think about if I could go back in time, what advice would I give young me?
Yeah.
Is lifestyle creep. Don't fall for lifestyle creep, because I feel like a lot of times we get stuck in these jobs, not because we want to be there, but because we got a mortgage that's too goddamn expensive, or we bought a car because we're making, ridiculous freaking salaries that some people are making in tech. You get stuck. And then you can't get a lower paying job because you've got so many goddamn bills to pay. Like, just watch out for that. If you don't need to pay as much money for things, you don't need to make as much money, and you don't need that ridiculously stressful tech job. Not to say you need to get out of design by any means, but you don't need that ridiculously stressful tech job that's going to expect you to work 80 hours a week. Find something else that might not be paying you as much, where you can go to lunch and get off early and hang out with your family and all that stuff. But you don't need to make as much. And so anyway, that's advice like I give myself years ago if I go back in time. Again, mental health, more important to me.
That would have been very helpful for me.
Yeah.
I had just purchased an expensive house in Long Beach, and it
closed.
Imagine
what that is, by the way. Blows my mind how much that probably cost. I don't want to know of it.
It's a lie. So, I could afford it when I had the job, and I got laid off the day it closed. The house closed.
Jesus Christ, of course.
And now I'm paying for it. Take heed.
Don't move to Long Beach. I'm sure.
Move here. There's better places. Find a better house that you can afford.
Lifestyle creep. All right, Rashmi, this has been amazing, awesome conversation. I have enjoyed this thoroughly. Before we get out of here, like I said, I've got a few questions I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. I almost said I got a bunch of questions for my listeners to help my guests get to know a little bit. That doesn't make any sense. The questions are for you, not the listeners.
Okay.
First thing that comes to your mind, you don't have to think too hard about it. These are pretty simple. First up, what is your favorite non-design book?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. My first instinct was to say a book but my favorite author got canceled.
Uh-oh. What happened?
I'm trying. So I will shout out the art and separate the artist. American Gods by Neil Gaiman. So Neil Gaiman I'm separating my appreciation, but the art is amazing. It's one of my favorite rereads. It's so fun. There's the fantasy in it. There's like these themes of religion and how religion, like the things we worship, really impact us. I know they did a show about it. I watched like half of the show. It was fine, but I feel like many book readers, I feel like the book is better.
Yeah. So I'm curious, why did he get canceled? I'm not familiar. What happened?
Oh, it's a Me Too thing.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I'm not familiar with him, but
I'm sure if you look him up, you'll find it.
Okay.
But his art is amazing.
Not the guy. The guy's a dick. Art's great.
Guys, yeah.
Fair enough. Next up, what is your favorite non-design podcast?
Oh, it's called Anatomy of Murder. I fall into, the millennial female category of liking true crime, and it's just fascinating because it's got the two hosts. She is in criminal law. She did it for a long time. And then the other one was in law enforcement and as a detective. And then they go through the crime, but they talk about it as if the nuts and bolts are of each, like why law enforcement did what they did, why they needed to gather this particular evidence or whatever in order to convict whoever it was. I find it fascinating over other true crime podcasts.
That's
really cool.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, I have actually started to listen to a couple of those, and I never followed up. I never finished it, but I love those too. Those are great. I need to. Yeah. No. Yeah. They are. Yeah. I'm murdering. Stuff, yeah. But I love that stuff too.
Shout out a different one though that's more optimistic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Please.
I don't remember the exact podcast name because I listened to. It's just like a one shot, like just a set amount of episodes. About Dolly Parton. I feel like it's called Dolly Parton's America or something.
Okay.
Listen, like this lady, she can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. The podcast goes through and talks about Dolly Parton's life and history, but also kind of like what was going on in America at the time. So you learn about her, but you also learn about the climate of what she was experiencing as a female country star back then, like looking the way she did and experiencing what she did. Highly recommend, but very positive, like very just fun listen.
Yeah, cool. Anything Dolly Parton, I love that. She's great. And I hate to say that she's getting very old, and I'm going to be very upset when Dolly is no longer with us. But we live very close to Dolly World, by the way. I don't know if you've ever been to Dolly World in Gatlinburg.
It's on the bucket list.
It's fun. It's Appalachian Disney World, I guess.
That's exactly it.
But it's awesome. It's actually very fun, and it's not nearly as expensive as Disney World. But if you ever make it down to Gatlinburg, make sure to check out Dollywood. All right, next up, what is your favorite meal? This could be something you've cooked personally or ate at a restaurant or something your grandma used to cook.
Favorite meal. I'm so torn. I love food in so many ways. So my favorite... nostalgically. So my husband is a classically trained chef. We actually met at art school.
Jealous.
He was in the culinary program and I was in the design program.
Where'd you go to school?
It's the Art Institute of Orange County.
Oh, okay.
Which is now defunct. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the one that went out. Yeah.
Yeah, ripped off a bunch. But
jeez.
I got one thing great out of husband.
There you go.
And he doesn't cook anymore. He actually switched to photography.
Oh, really?
He still cooks for me. Yeah. And he learned how to, and I'm not saying that it's like an authentic meal, but it's a meal that he makes with such love. He like always tweaks it and tries to make it like, oh, what did you think about this and that? And he learned how to make Nigerian beef stew, which is very outside of, so he specializes in more Mexican and Asian flavors. And so that's usually what we make. But like the Nigerian beef stew is like a special occasion because this is something I learned and it was so different than what I ever cooked for anybody else. So this is something he makes just for me. It's my favorite thing. I have it on my birthday every year. It's great. I love it. It's so delicious. And this is the reason I love African cuisine, like Ethiopian and Nigerian. I'm getting hungry just thinking about this.
I love that. Yeah, I have a buddy who's Ethiopian actually, and this sounds super bougie, but it's not.
Yeah.
In Cincinnati area, they have these things called swim clubs.
Okay.
And it's like a private pool. It sounds very bougie, but my pool was like built in like the 60s, and it looks like it, and it's like chain link fence all around. And it looks like the pool from The Sandlot. Anyway, they have grills and we go out and like cook and stuff, but he makes Ethiopian and he brings it out there.
Oh,
and,
delicious.
Cooks it on the barbecue pit, like pots. He brings pots and puts the stuff in the pots. There's a lot of stews and stuff.
So jealous.
Good. There's like a local grocery that has injera, and he like got it.
Yeah.
This weekend he made a bunch of Ethiopian food. And it was so good. Oh my God. Anyway, I love that stuff. I love East African food.
Yes.
Next up, what is your favorite vacation spot?
Oh, vacation spot. Because I haven't been, like, believe it or not, I have not been on a lot of vacations in my life.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't. And this is another reason about burnout. I'm like, I'm not taking enough time for myself. I'm not experiencing enough stuff. My favorite place that I've ever been is Australia, Sydney, Australia.
Oh, okay.
And yet I'll say that it is very like being in LA. Like, it's very like Santa Monica vibes. If you've ever been to Santa Monica,
I've never been.
It feels like it's the same place, only moved across the world, different hemisphere. I actually went there during the winter months, because down there it's summer, while it's winter here. I had Christmas down under. And it was so funny. Like, you see all these like Santa Clauses, like the doing the Salvation Army. They're wearing shorts and like no shirts, and they're like, you're like, oh my God, of it, because it's like very, my half of my family, my dad's side of the family is all Fijian, so they're very Pacific Islander culture, and there's a lot of that down there. Plus, it's also very familiar to, like I said, it feels like home because I've been a resident in Los Angeles most of my life, so
that's awesome.
Good vibes there, and it's actually cleaner, so that's nice.
That's cool. I love that. That's awesome. I've never been. I guess like in California, you're a little bit closer, but back in New Orleans, we had some friends. The guy Dylan was from Australia, and they had 4 kids, and every year they would take a 2-week trip to Australia with their 4 young kids. I'm like, I don't know how you guys do that flight, dude. I don't think I can handle. And that's from New Orleans, so like you had to fly 8 hours to California before you even flew to Australia. And anyway, very long flight.
That's coming.
I would love to go though at some point. I actually had another buddy it's New Zealand, it's not Australia, but he did his honeymoon 2 weeks. They rented an RV and drove all up and down New Zealand, which I know it's not the same country, but they're close enough for me to put the two together.
But so much fun. Yeah.
On my bucket list one day, do that before you have kids. I can't imagine doing that with kids. I would go nuts.
I agree.
Last question. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
Pencil and paper.
Pencil and paper. Keeping it old school. I love it.
I am an old school designer. I will do sketching. I'll do all the sketching, all the analog stuff before I grab a mouse every single time.
I love it.
I think it's what separates me from the machines.
Yeah, that's true. Until they have hands.
Until they have hands. We're not far away from that. But so I just feel faster when I do it that. Like, here's all the ugly shit, and then I'll just put the pretty shit like on the screen. And that, I don't know, it's always been a great flow for me. Favorite go-to, obviously, I like using like color too. So I'm like markers, acrylic pens or something, and good old-fashioned paper.
All right, let me ask you this. Favorite pen, favorite paper, favorite notebook. You have to have one.
Oh, no. So here's, yes. So I actually really like doing everything on a nice watercolor stock, no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
If I had the money for that.
Yeah. See, if you still had that fancy seat at the table, you could afford. You wouldn't have any time to use it. That's the problem.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I don't have a brand or anything, but like nostalgia-wise, let me see if I have it right here. I could probably have it somewhere else. Oh, I do. Okay. This is my favorite. The listeners can't see it.
Number 2
pencil.
It is it. You have used that thing almost to its
It's my favorite because my husband gave it to me when we were
Oh,
first
that's pretty sweet.
dating. And I've been using it ever since. And I mean, there's no eraser on this thing anymore. And but I know I don't know if it's a dumb answer, but because I don't really do brands. I just do whatever's available to me. And I just feel like that's the creative part.
I
Do
love it.
things and see how it goes. But yeah, that's my favorite one.
I think that's amazing. Rashmi, it has been incredible hanging out with you today. Before we get out of here, why don't you give yourself a plug and let everybody know where they can find you and follow you and all that good stuff.
Amazing. Yes, thank you again. It's been such a gift having this conversation. You can
Pleasure's
find me. I mean, you can definitely, seek out my finished portfolio. This is the plight of every designer, is that their portfolio is never updated. So if you want to see a kind of a trip through time, my URL is www.rashmibella, that's only one L, .design. And that is my portfolio.
All right.
And okay, so other places you could find me, if I think the audience here, probably all designers. So please reach out, DM me on LinkedIn. I'm actually more active on Threads these days. So you can find me at Rashmi Bella Design on Threads. I love Thread. And we were talking about community earlier. That's a great place to start with community, because you just run your mouth and your community finds you.
Did you ever try Blue Sky by any chance?
I haven't tried it. I haven't. I might. I don't know.
I signed up, and when there was like the big Twitter exodus not long ago.
Yeah.
I haven't had Twitter in decades probably, but I joined Blue Sky. I might have posted 10 times, and I never really go on it. So I'm just curious if you're on it. But anyway, all right. Well, Rashmi, this has been amazing talking to you. I really appreciate you coming on. We're going to include all those links and everything in the show notes. If you want to find Rashmi online, the show notes at beyonduxdesign.com. Rashmi, one more time, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.